Welcome to the CMO Spotlight. And today I have Kristy LoRusso, who is the National Chief Marketing Officer for Kaiser Permanente. Welcome, Kristy.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being here. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Many of us know Kaiser Permanente, but we all probably have different perception of what that is. So I wonder if we could just start by your telling us a little bit more about the organization of Kaiser Permanente.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. So Kaiser Permanente is an integrated care delivery system. We serve about 12.5 million members. We operate across 8 different states, plus the District of Columbia. We've been in business since the early 1940s. We provide care and coverage to all of our members. We are a mission-based nonprofit organization. Our mission is to provide high quality, affordable healthcare to the members that we serve and the communities in which they live.
Awesome. And so how big an organization-ish is Kaiser Permanente? Like how many, do you have any idea of how many employees and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's just north of 300,000 employees.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so I'm curious about your role as Chief Marketing Officer. If you could tell us a little bit more about what your focus is and maybe even a little about your team.
Sure, be happy to. So I serve as the Chief Marketing Officer at Kaiser Permanente, and my role is to really protect the brand at an enterprise level, work with the local teams to make sure that the brand and the messages and the creative that we create is not only true to our brand and drives consistency with our value proposition, but also is relevant to the care that gets served in each market. So what's interesting about our model is we are one national brand, but care is delivered locally. So it's really important that we tell one single message about what Kaiser Permanente is and does, and then how we show up in each local market is in our differentiation is what we do on a local basis.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm curious about your path that led you to Kaiser Permanente, but I know you've been there a long time. You've been there 16
I've been
plus
there
years.
16 years. I know, longest job I've ever had.
Yeah, absolutely. But so I think after college, you began your career at Time, and then you
Time
went to
Warner,
Walt Disney. Time Warner, then went to Walt Disney, and then Yahoo. And so I'm curious if you could just give us a little quick kind of snapshot of your path that led you to Kaiser Permanente. And then obviously, once you got to Kaiser Permanente, you started at a role and then got promoted a couple of times since you've been there.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. So I've worked in 3 major cities. So my career has taken me from New York to Los Angeles to the San Francisco Bay Area, which has been really exciting. I have spanned different industries, publishing, technology, and now healthcare, always been in marketing. So I think the constant is marketing and taking and applying the skills that I have built over different industries and applying them and building upon them with each role that I've been in. It's been really interesting to be able to be on that journey and be from publishing to tech and then into healthcare. I got into healthcare because we actually closed down a division in LA of magazines that I was supporting, and they moved the operations back to New York. So I was actually out of a role, and the role at KP came across my desk, and it sounded like a great opportunity. And like you said, I have worked my way up within Kaiser Permanente, but I was asked to come in to build the direct-to-consumer capability during a time when health insurance was predominantly being more offered and chosen by individuals because employers were putting more cost sharing on their employees. A lot of people were getting laid off because it was during an emotional financial crisis. And so we wanted to make sure that those members that had Kaiser Permanente coverage through their employer as they lost their jobs had a place to transition. And so I was building out that direct-to-consumer capability, and then from there, just applied all of my years of knowledge and experience in publishing in the healthcare industry.
Awesome. So I'm curious if there's a piece of advice that either you wish that you'd gotten early in your career, or maybe some advice you would dispense to somebody who's brand new in their marketing career.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with our interns and early career employees, which is such a gift, being able to
Mhm.
do that. I feel like one of the things that I've always been really curious and always been a self-starter, and I like to find things that can be fixed. So what my advice is to, especially early careers, not to be afraid to lean into the things that they see that could be fixed or improved, and really to have a process improvement mindset, and to really think about, what comes before, what comes after, and could the handoffs be more smooth? Just to have people think about their role in kind of in the cycle of things. I think that was something that I did early on in my career, and I think it served me well, because it has enabled me to drive for efficiencies and optimization, sort of, and how the work gets done operationally. And then I think it's also learning the art of how to ask a question. I think is really
Mm,
important. I
mm.
didn't learn that till later. I wish I learned it earlier, but with curiosity and questioning, it's such an important skill.
So here's the age-old question: is there such a thing as a dumb question?
So I don't think so. And I think
No.
really taking a pause and really framing one is such an important skill. And I feel like, especially when I talk to early career individuals, you feel compelled to have the answer when in fact you can't possibly have all the answers.
Mm.
So if you just sort of take a beat and think about a question to learn more and to really get to the heart of what is really being talked about, it's a really important skill.
That is a great skill. And I think it's one that maybe can't get replaced by AI. It's critical thinking.
I think that's right. It's critical thinking, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I believe everybody has a superpower, and I'm curious what your superpower
Oh, it's such a good question.
is.
I would say my superpower, this is what I've been told I'm good at, is connecting dots in disparate information.
Mm,
So as things are being discussed, I seem to have an ability to connect things and make them make sense together, and then be able to describe them in a way that those who are working on the work understand it. So I thought everyone did it, and then I learned from an executive coach once who pointed out that it was something that was unique to me. So I don't know if it's a superpower or not, but I think it's something I'm good at.
It is a superpower. So I'm curious if there's some values that you either want to demonstrate as a leader, or values maybe that you would demand in anybody that's on your team.
Yeah, we took a long, hard look at our values as a marketing organization, and we look at them each year. In fact, we just looked at them together as a leadership team. And so it's trust, integrity, respect, and innovation are the values that we live by and model here. And I guess I can sort of unpack one by one. From an integrity standpoint, being willing to show up as your whole self, be honest, be true, and really lean into the work. And respect is really important, because I think, especially in this virtual environment, like, we're all showing up with stuff that comes with us into these conversations, right? Everyone's got their own context. So I think it's really important that we honor and respect us as individuals, and the context in which we're all operating. I think that's really important to really build trust, right? Because trust is so foundational to strong, high performing teams. And then innovation is really important, because I really want myself and my team to be willing to innovate, to be bold, to take risks, to fail fast, to kind of really lead with a growth mindset, because that's how you get better.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And it sounds like those are company values, but maybe those are also core values of your
It's both.
own.
I feel like, we spend so much time here. They start to blend together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're human beings working together. So I feel like it's really core as humans, like, what's important to us. And then it really shows up in our work.
Yeah. I'm curious where you find inspiration, either for yourself or maybe for your team.
Working for an organization like Kaiser Permanente that has such a strong mission, such a strong brand, it's really easy to find inspiration every day with the members and the customers that we serve. So those in which we serve each day is where I get my motivation and innovation, and really pride. we start a lot of our meetings with member stories. We
Mm,
to walk in the shoes of our members, to talk, to hear from our customers, those we serve. That really gives us the motivation, because that's the reason why we're here, and the work that we do. It's very
yeah,
different in all the years that in the different kinds of industries I've been in. This one, healthcare, is really special because it is people serving people in a way that is so personal that it's really easy to stay motivated each day.
I'll bet. Well, and you do get the luxury of being in an industry where you actually are part of the target audience and you are a consumer of services, of healthcare services. There are
Yes,
sometimes as marketers where we have to remember that we are not the target audience and have to be empathetic and put ourselves in the shoes of
that's such a
somebody else.
great point. Yes,
Yeah,
you're
but you
absolutely
actually are
right.
a consumer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we know what good
So
looks like and feels like. And so
right,
we can,
right.
right,
And you know what bad looks like, you know what to avoid.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a great point.
So here at Setup, we're marketing matchmakers, and that typically means that we bring together marketing agencies and brands, or marketers with agencies that can support them. So we don't live squarely on the side. We're not a marketing agency. We're not on the client side. We live in that space in between. And so we think a lot about that relationship between the brand and agency, or client and agency. So I'm just curious, either at Kaiser Permanente or in a previous role, how do you work with marketing agencies?
Oh, they're important. We also have an internal agency too, which I could talk about
Hmm,
as well. So we use external agencies strategically for like some big ideas, some outside in, right, to stay fresh in sort of what's happening outside. We also use them for capabilities. So as we think about capabilities we have to build, how do we think about that? And sometimes we ask them to come and help us build it, and then augment our staff, and then we teach our teams. We also use agencies for media buying, and then multicultural expertise to
yeah,
make sure that we're, because our, the members we serve is total representation of the U.S., and to make sure that we are reaching everybody authentically with where they are. And so really working with media companies that can help us be creative in that way, and then multicultural agencies that can help us ensure that we are being authentic in the messages that we create.
that's great. And you spoke a little bit to this about some of the disciplines, and I'm just curious, are there certain disciplines that I hate to use the word always, but you would almost always want to keep in-house? Like, for
Yeah.
example, you mentioned your in-house agency. And are there certain other disciplines of marketing where I almost always would want to get some outside perspective or expertise?
Yeah. So I feel really strongly about the brand messaging and value prop is internal. So our
Hmm.
creative and content experts across the program really own that, right? We live it each day and we know the brand best. So I feel like that part of the creativity. So very much brand messaging and value proposition. Externally, I think about capabilities a lot. So best lead generation, lead nurturing, lead capture. Are you fully optimized in how we're communicating, journey orchestration? I feel like that's something that, especially in the experience management space, we're trying to get better at. So we've been leaning more externally on things like that.
Yeah. Well, we often talk about the reasons that clients hire agencies are usually capacity issues. I don't have enough arms and legs to do everything
Yeah,
I want
that's
to
true.
accomplish. Or capability issues. Like, we're good at these 20 things, but there's these other three things that we really
That's right.
feel somebody has some external, capability that we just don't have in-house.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, right? That sort of release valve. If you look at your demand curve, which can be when you sort of have not enough supply to reach the demand, can you
Yeah.
have a release valve? It's like you're talking about, and then capability for sure.
Yeah. Well, and we've had a lot of conversation about internal agency and what that really means, because I'm a believer that at some point an internal agency just gets called the marketing team,
Yeah,
because the kinds of people that work for an agency are interested in working on different industries. Today you might work in automotive, tomorrow it might be healthcare, and the day after it might be travel and hospitality. But I understand that the idea of the internal agency is you probably have a multidisciplinary team that
that's right.
has different capabilities and capacities, and you can stick them on one project and then change directions and stick them on a different project and get them to accomplish things.
Yeah, I think about it in a sort of a shared service model. I think that's the opportunity, right? Where you have clear services that are internal,
Mm,
particularly in the areas, user experience or video development or content creation. Particularly as I was mentioning, like particularly where it's for our brand reputation, brand consistency. So I think you're right. Like you don't want it all to be like, oh, it's the marketing department. I think you actually want a set of experts who can apply their knowledge to the organization broadly, because you want to drive that consistency
mhm,
to marketers
mhm.
and communicators.
So I'm curious, as marketers, we often are working with non-marketing functions within the organization
Yeah,
who don't live and breathe marketing every day, although many feel that they're experts at marketing, even if that's not their
this is
core
true too.
function.
Yes.
But I'm curious how you demonstrate the value of marketing to the non-marketing functions within the organization.
Yes, it's really important, particularly in an industry like ours, right? So we're delivering care first and foremost, and so the my ability to tell the story of marketing relative to supporting our membership growth and retaining the members we have is really important. And so it's a couple of ways. Demonstrating how we show up relative to our competition, because we compete with care delivery providers and health plans. Return on investment, of course, that's doing the math and showing the math, and then also doing our best to talk about how we can attribute marketing, membership growth and retention to the marketing spend. So we've been spending a
Right.
lot of time in attribution modeling, and doing some really interesting predictive and prescriptive analytics in that space, because everyone wants to know, well, what am I going to get with the spend? And in the case of healthcare and other sort of long tail products and services, you're not going to buy it until you have to, or you have to think
Right.
about it. You mostly get it through your employer, so you do it each year annually. So it's really important that we're relevant through the year as people are making decisions, and then be able to influence them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so here's a curveball question, which is, that it's easier when you can make the attribution directly to the spend, from the spend to like a member signing up or something like that. But brand is a little bit harder to track and a little bit
Yes.
harder to measure and show ROI. So how do you do that when it's focused on brand building versus performance marketing?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually just made a strategic shift in our brand health tracking. We used to
Mm,
do it 2 times a year, and now we do it monthly. So we're pulling samples each month and looking at willingness to consider and key metrics on our brand strength, to be able to have a barometer for how we're doing each and every month. It doesn't connect to direct enrollment, right? That's the
right.
performance marketing side of things. But when you we know that if you are willing to consider Kaiser Permanente, you are more likely to end up as an enrollment. So we were able to correlate these things.
Cool.
It's not exact,
So
but it's pretty good.
yeah, exactly. Well, you gotta, I mean, at the end of the day, we have to, when Nike puts the swoosh on everywhere they can, they hope eventually when you walk into the shoe store, you pick the swoosh instead of the three stripes. So
That's right.
brand is long-term lead gen.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I'm curious if there's a campaign or program, either recent or from your days past, that taught you something really valuable, either because it was a flop and you learned something a lesson that you really needed to learn, or it was maybe really successful and you'd like to try to emulate that again in the future.
I have one of each. Um,
Okay, great.
uh, and they're kind of related. So the one that was very successful was during the global pandemic, where our brand as a source of sort of hope and emotion and connectivity was a real opportunity. So we created some excellent work with one of our external agencies, where we told stories that were very emotionally driven, and it was what people needed to hear at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
it resulted in some of our highest brand recall and performance and brand association ever in the history of KP. On the flip side, there was another time when we went too far away from the emotional connection and focused too far on the functional connection, like what it is we do, versus the
Yeah.
we went right for the right, for the head versus the heart, over index on the head versus the heart. And we didn't get the reaction. We didn't get the performance that we were looking for. So we kind of learned it on both sides. So that, I guess the key is you have to have both, and they have to be balanced, and you have to be really intentional about that.
Yeah, well, and if you lean too hard to one or the other, then you're missing, you're too far off the rails, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to wrap things up with some fun questions that aren't necessarily specific to marketing.
Okay.
The first is there a sports team or a band or a book or a quote or a movie that really inspires you? And what is it about that thing that inspires you most?
So there's this book, How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. And it really is, it's one I carry around. It's highlighted, it's tabbed, I've got sticky notes on it. And it really it keeps me grounded, because it really is like, what's the meaning of your life? Like, what are you doing? How do you hold yourself accountable as an individual, personally, in all the roles that we have personally and professionally? So that one is really important to me, and I think it's been a game changer. I don't know if you've ever read it, but I highly recommend it.
No, we'll link to it in the show notes too. So that's great.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then the Maya Angelou quote, and I know I hear it a lot, but I actually have it on my wall. Doesn't matter what you said, it doesn't matter what you do. It's really how you make people feel. That's what people are going to remember. That's not exactly how the quote is, but that's really the gist of it. And I think a lot about that. And it ties to the brand conversation we just had. If you focus too much on the functional and the non-emotional, that's not what people remember. They remember how the interaction makes you feel.
Right. I love that. So other than your family, which is too easy of an answer, I'm curious where you find joy outside of work. Do you have any hobbies or things like that?
Well, I get to live in Northern California, so that is very fortunate. So I get outside a lot. So we are, my family and I are very outdoorsy people. So I love being out in nature. That brings me joy. Have a wonderful group of friends who are like family here. My family is still on the East Coast, so they bring me joy, the friends that I have.
That's
and
amazing.
I like to read a lot.
Excellent. So curious if there is a brand that you've never worked on that you really admire, and what is it about that brand that you admire the most?
It's a great question. I'd have to say Patagonia, and it's really because of their product is incredible, but it's what they say in their mission, right? They want to create the best products. They want to protect our home planet. They want to do good in all that they do, protect nature. I just think it's really cool that they're thinking about sort of their impact globally on the world and in what they do.
Absolutely. And I've never heard of a company that encourages people not to buy their product, but to get their product repaired.
Yeah.
To repair the product.
That's right.
They at one point they even had, I think, vans or trucks that they were driving around cities, and you could bring your jacket to them and they would mend the jacket and give it back to you. And I said, I think they were even mending clothing that wasn't Patagonia necessarily.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
I think so.
I think one of the things about the brand, like, it's such high quality anyway, but the fact that they actually want to repair it versus creating more, it's really incredible.
Yeah. All right. So my last question for you is totally just for fun. I'm curious if there's a fictional realm or story that you would like to be a part of or live in at some point, if you could.
Oh, I'm having so much fun where I am right now, but I'd go to Wakanda.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And why? Why is that interesting?
Well, it's kind of two things. Well, the fact that they have vibranium and have this sort of self-sustaining resource is pretty darn cool, and it powers their whole city. But it's the women. It's just the amazing, powerful leaders of the women of Wakanda that I just think are so inspirational.
That's awesome. Love that. That's maybe the best answer I've ever gotten for that question. So I appreciate that. So Kristy LoRusso is the National Chief Marketing Officer for Kaiser Permanente. Kristy, thank you so much. This was such a joy to have this conversation with you.
Joe, it's been absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much.